Welcome to another CEO Wisdom Pod or President Wisdom Pod, shall I say. We have Brian Gerstner with us. He is the president at Whitelabel IQ. We're going to talk about white labeling, partnerships, agency growth, scaling your own agency, and development services. Today, niche marketing, if we have the time. This podcast is brought to you by podcar.com. If you want to start your own podcast, I can help you do that. Brian, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and about Whitelabel IQ.
Well, thank you for having me. Yeah, as you mentioned, I'm the president of Whitelabel IQ, and we are, in essence, a digital production house that helps power other agencies and clients in helping them kind of scale their operations and also really bring kind of specialized talent into the mix when we're talking about maybe specialized projects in kind of different projects that they might have, initiatives, and even then sometimes just fill gap staff services. My background is not only in running and developing design, but I've done 20 years client-facing and brand strategy. And we've been growing tremendously. So it's been a great time. It's been a great past few years.
So what have you learned from all your time running agencies before? What lessons have you brought to Whitelabel IQ?
Two particularly that come to mind. My peers have been my best resource across the board. Having other people around me that I can constantly talk to, peers that I can reach out to, kind of get those gut checks. Because a lot of times when you're operating, whether it be in a company or an agency, you're kind of in a bubble of how you work. And the problem is you get a lot of confirmation bias from that. And you're not really able to kind of see things from a different perspective to be able to solve and really innovate your way out of problems. But from that, I guess one of the key things is to be involved with your peers, to constantly be reaching out, talking, to find new ways to solve these problems. That's been the most valuable thing for me.
And you serve other agencies. What struggles do you see agency owners having nowadays?
Well, one of them is definitely the ability to innovate, because we're working with so many different technologies, so many different channels. Things that keep changing. I mean, it's not just with marketing agencies, but everywhere. Someone's moving our cheese constantly. So you kind of have to have the kind of moxie of someone who is okay with that and living in that uncertainty. But the struggle is being able to innovate fast enough to not follow trends too quickly. Because, inside of, in running a company, or even if it in the marketing or even technology, innovation's happening incredibly fast. And you're constantly having to break down the company, analyze what you're doing, how you're doing, and just make sure that not only are you efficient and competitive, but are you doing the right things? Are you serving your audience well? Because we're on the front lines, we're really on the cutting edge of things. There's no textbook for a lot of this. And even the textbook is very set. It doesn't necessarily represent how we actually work. And that's, once again, why peers are so helpful, because learning what's going on and how other people are being successful is a great way to kind of stay relevant to your audience, a great way to kind of question what you're doing and how you're doing.
Right. And in your own agency and Whitelabel IQ, what challenges have you faced? Because the price point is quite low. Whitelabel is sort of trendy nowadays, but what challenges do you face with that kind of agency, with outsourcing, quote unquote?
Yeah. So for our agency specifically, a lot of our challenges are the same as I described, just constantly making sure that we're relevant. Particularly as AI has come on, knowing how to pivot, how to react to that, how it's really influencing the market. Because a lot of what we're doing today, in all honesty, in 1 to 2 years, we may not be doing any of the same thing anymore. And when we're the biggest challenge is, as those things are happening, and as we've grown from like 17 to 80 people over the past few years, is like, how do you manage all of that change in an organization? So our biggest problem has been to look at the change that's happening, understand it, but then also in a very human way, work with our team to be able to adapt and change how they're working. I've had a lot of conversations even this morning, understanding how, the executive level, we're seeing and changing and understanding, and the thoughts and what we need to do is coming out quickly. But we also really much have to understand that the people on the front lines doing the work. The experience is much different for them, and how we manage those people and train them, and even not just train them, but how do they train us to tell us how and give us the feedback in that feedback cycle that we need to really make the right decisions, and not to turn our companies into something that's churning so fast that it becomes chaotic, and that we're not really able to keep our feet on the ground.
Right. Talking about AI, teachers tell their student not to use AIs, but I think entrepreneurs are very much in favor for their employees to use AIs to get faster to these responses, to drive better output and so forth. How are your employees using AIs, and how do you teach them to use AI?
Well, we definitely are leaning into it very heavily. I do understand certain industries and cases where it doesn't work, particularly when we're working with clients who are in very heavily regulated or security type applications. But in general, as we're working, it is changing how we're working. It's changing how we're working, how we're actually building and executing a lot of our work. So I'm really pushing our team very hard to use it. What we have found, though, is, as I've mentioned before with change management, is things are changing so fast that we can't necessarily expect everybody to start bringing, oh, I found this tool, this is going to help us, this is going to make things better. Just everybody on the front lines of execution to be able to have that role as change manager. We are finding, particularly at the size of the company we are, that we're having to be a lot more structured in how we roll out AI and how we're expecting other people to use it. So it's come to, for us to really be able to create adoption, we have to be way more intentional than we thought we may had to have been at the very beginning. There is a bit of change fatigue that happens. And also in it, we have to be very careful with how our team is using it, because there's also consistency in the end product that we're developing. This has a lot for us. It has a lot to do with, debugging, code review, creating code, analyzing, communications on the front end. So to repeat myself, we have started to find that we have to be much more structured in how we roll out AI, and also making sure that we're creating a feedback loop from our team, so they're able to give us feedback and we're not just handing something to them saying, do it this way now. Because those things aren't sticking, and the adoption rate at that is causing more problems, because a lot of the consistency in how we develop things becomes much more uncertain when the adoption across our team is not consistent.
So AI stacks that your team precisely use in their jobs, what would use cases be?
I mean, one was recently, as we're doing a lot of coding, we standardized the code editors that we're using for development, and then started to employ specific chatbots or co-pilots, so that we could then have a consistent platform which people are working from. That allowed us to start then taking case examples of how different people are working, and have ways to directly show other people on the team how it's helping them do their work. So that was one way that we're doing it. Another way is communications and even contract writing. So as we're providing communications, a lot of times we're talking to people at different levels of understanding, whether they're a developer who is strong in technical communication, or whether it's the end consumer that just needs to know the output and how it's going to benefit them, and to have reassurance. So we're able to use it also in communications and kind of break it down, and to be able to communicate to different audiences a lot faster than we used to be. The key thing too is, as we're even just writing scopes of work or analyzing what we're doing, we're able to flush out a lot more of the details faster. So then again, as this was a lot of what we're already doing, but it's causing things to happen a lot faster. So, in essence, the AI is causing change to be even more rapid than it used to be. I mean, if people were already, their heads are spinning, but now it's going even faster. And in that, we just have to be able to just adapt to that change quicker and be okay with it.
Partnerships.
Yes.
It has been a very strong driver for your company. How do you do it precisely? What's your growth hack and your precise use case? How do you reach out, or how do you get that much partners? Is it inbound, outbound? I want to know precisely how you do it.
A lot of ours comes from inbound. It comes from basically doing consistent marketing programs, and also staying within small circles of people and working through referrals. And at the end of the day, just doing really good work and hoping people recognize it. But as far as partnerships come, in developing those partnerships, there's a lot of different types of engagements. Often there are some transactional people that come through that just one project, one and done. There are people that we work with that have a lot of different partners, and sometimes we win them, sometimes we don't. But a lot of the true benefit of strategic partnerships comes from the people who are kind of looking for love, who have a consistent need. A lot of the efficiency comes there in being able to be consistent in how we communicate, knowing how much information to bring to people, being able to actually invest the time into those partnerships so that they understand how we work, but most importantly too, we understand how they work. The golden rule is no longer good enough to do unto people as you want to be done unto. People want to be treated the way they want to be treated now. So that takes time. That takes getting to know someone and really investing, not only from them, but also us investing into their agency. When I look at strategic partnerships, one of the key things to understand is it's very much like onboarding a new employee. You have to set expectations. You have to be clear about the types of deliverables you're doing, and you almost have to onboard vendors the way you would an employee. That's where you're going to have the most success, because then you're going to have much better communication. Expectations will be clear. And in marketing, as I serve a lot of marketing agencies, and even direct to clients, setting and maintaining expectations is a huge part of what we do.
How do you get in touch with these partners? Is it outbound? Is it SEO? How do people hear from you?
So we use a marketing strategy, which is basically has to do with creating pillar content and establishing positions of authority in the areas that we're talking. So we do a lot of our cornerstone piece is just constant blogging, and then reaching out to our partners and talking to them to find out what they're interested, to make sure we're writing about things that they want to know. From there, we also work with groups of people, whether it be like associations, professional groups, because we know inside of those groups, we're able to build a reputation. And then, of course, like so many companies, referrals are the fastest way to business. It shortens the sales cycle significantly when you create the types of credibility that you have for referrals. But that also, when we work in professional groups and associations, it allows those referrals to happen faster. So I do think it's really important to niche down and be known for something. And our ability to write and develop content allows us to focus and really hopefully attract right fit qualified candidates and prospects.
What about cold email at scale? Sending cold email to agencies, telling them you could white label for them. I've certainly tried so for some of my clients and even some of my own companies. People are interested into getting on a call, but it seems very few actually convert to try you out. How do you first, what do you think about cold email to scale? And second, how do you get them from a free call that anyone would accept to actually using your services?
So, I mean, I've seen and worked and been involved in cold email campaigns, and they can work well. Okay. we have not found a lot of success in it unless we're just trying to develop a top of mind strategy. When using a cold email campaign to drive conversions, our biggest problems have been the qualifying that actual person on the end, because it's not always a great fit. Plus, there's also been it's been hit and miss with cold email. There's a lot of time in managing it, how to run it well. And then again, I guess one of the reasons I'm hesitant not so dropped on it is I get hundreds of those emails a day saying from companies that do the exact same thing that I do. And when you talk about getting conversions from those calls, and the hard part there is we're spending a lot of time potentially qualifying people who are not qualified. And it takes a lot of time out of our agency. So I'm not a huge fan of cold email, but I have seen it work. I have seen it work for the right type of product, the right type of outreach. If it didn't work, I probably wouldn't be getting so many of them every day. So in that game, I think it's really an issue of consistency and the need to be able to touch on people from multiple channels. No cold email is a silver bullet.
Right. It certainly works, to get people on a call, but then how do you convert these folks into actual clients? What is the incentive to actually try you and not just talk with you and, speculate about them using your service to cut down the cost? Because there's trust issues as well, right? They have the existing team, their team is already performing, yet costing them quite a lot, right? So what's the incentive that you throw their way to actually have them give you a pilot?
Well, as I said, as we're producing content and we're working in a lot of associations, our real primary marketing goal is to build a position of authority and to niche down and be known for something that we do and we do well. So as far as the benefit, the key is being able just to demonstrate the quality of our services. So as people come to us, if I have to sell them on the idea of what we're doing, it's probably not a good fit. But if I can I can find somebody and we can demonstrate a position of authority and they can see that we're legit, we do what we do well, we have a lot of experience, then that's the first step in building that trust, because business is trust at the end of the day, right? So as far as getting them to use our service in the sale, it's really just demonstrating and talking and making sure that they feel that we understand what their needs are, that we understand who they are and what they're trying to accomplish. If people feel heard and they feel that we understand them, then typically we can take a step forward. From there, we can start demonstrating and providing examples and case studies. We can have multiple projects and we can actually just be there to help. Nobody wants to be sold to, but if we can just demonstrate that there is an alignment and there's potential in that, then ideally they'll keep coming back and talking to us. In that whole cycle, I'm not trying just to consistently win that work. My goal is to get to a no fast if it's not a good fit. And if they can decide to keep talking, then we know that there's possibly an opportunity there. But I'm going to try to get to know fast.
I'm the same. I think it's only privileged agencies that can roll in that zone, like afford to get to the know fast. And it's people that value their energy quite a lot. VS the classic formula in sales, which is close, 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 Question for you. You're in too many niches, right? Some people call these agencies jack of all trade. Wouldn't you feel that it would be better if you would niche in one specific niche, for example, being the very best at app development for fintech, outsourced, and then agencies that either have a bunch of fintech clients or fintech themselves would come to you?
I can't find a flaw in that. You're right. In ours, particularly in the audience that we serve, our focus isn't necessarily in technology, but our focus is in who we serve. So being very focused into agencies works allows us to work a lot about how we communicate, the type of work, the information that they need, and understanding that particular audience. To your point of like doing app development in fintech and having a focus of that narrow, what I can say is you cannot find a small enough audience to niche down into. And also, as you talked about being larger and having the luxury of doing that, I would challenge that also because even if you're a small agency, like 2, 3, 5 people, a lot of times you're going to be taking on a lot of different type of work because your work is coming from referrals, right? In that regard, you might just be working and trying to build a reputation within that small group of people. So your focus is in that people. But if you can actually narrow down into something that you can do well and you can demonstrate the value of what you're adding there, don't get me wrong, you have to make payroll. I understand that. But like I think there's a lot of value and a lot of courage that has to happen to be able to do that. And if you're constantly taking different types of work, you're never going to get good at anything. You're never going to be known for anything particular, and you're not going to deliver high quality work. At the end of the day, you're just drawing out the inevitable. But if you can narrow down as much as you can and get to the table and someone say, hey, I need this, you go, that's great, but that's not what I do. Let me give you the name of someone who does. You're going to get to know faster. You're going to get more people in front of you who are actually qualified. You can demonstrate success, and then you can get the next job, and you can get a referral. And I think it's harder. It takes a lot more courage, but at the end of the day, it's important to niche down.
So in White Label's case, what is the hot niche right now? Is it web dev? Is it design? Is it website maintenance, marketing, mobile app development? What is the hot niche that you're pursuing?
The vast majority of work that we do is in web development and design. So the designing and development of sites. When we talk about some of the other areas, as far as like our ad hoc programs, our website maintenance programs, these are complementary services that we provide to really support the project work that we're doing. In the website design and development area, that is where we've really niched down in being able to really help support people, particularly in specialized, more complex and advanced developments. Just the basic WordPress site, we do those, but when it comes into like API integrations, when it comes into doing more advanced animation, when it comes into site migrations between different technologies, those are areas where we can really provide specialized skill sets and where we excel.
Right. And okay, in your case, I would be curious to see like what are your top 3 goals for 2024 for White Label?
Yeah, absolutely. In it, one of the primary goals for us, company-wise, is to be able to standardize more of our processes and procedures. As I talk about things changing, they are changing quickly, but because we work with agencies who don't always have a background in what we do, it's being even more thorough in being able to have materials and content so that we can describe to people and set expectations clearer in what we're doing, how we're going to do it, the timeline it's going to take, so that they have all the information they need to be confident to resell the work that we do inside of those B2B2C relationships. Another key area in doing that is to take some of our complementary services and our core products and start to turn them into more predefined type deliverables. This will help us be more price competitive and efficient and effective in some of the areas that we know that there's high demand in. And not only that, by defining things better that way, we're going to accomplish the first goal as far as having more standardized deliverables and processes there. The third goal is to basically increase communication cadence. Because as I said, at the end of the day, this is really a lot of it's about trust and communication and staying in contact with people. silence is death in this industry. So if you're not constantly telling people where we are, what the expectations are, and keeping them updated, it makes their life difficult because everybody answers somebody. So everybody has to communicate, provide updates where we're going. A company's marketing plans might be dependent on things happening in a certain cadence. So once again, strengthening our communication, making sure that we are developing more long-term relationships with the people that we work with.
Where can people find out more about you and the company, Brian?
Right? whitelabeliq.com, and also our LinkedIn page. As I said, we produce a lot of hopefully very helpful content. Follow us on LinkedIn. It's a great place to stay top of mind in what we're doing.
I'm Charles Cormier. That was Brian Gerstner, and this was another Wisdom Podcast.